So last Sunday I did a webinar on Australia, and it went fairly well actually. I'm very happy with it, to tell you the truth. But anyway, in that webinar I discussed the current situation in Australia and how the Australian government is imposing totalitarianism on its own people. Yeah, and last week I did a video called Things Are Falling Apart, I think it was called, where I discussed how we got to this current state of affairs. And how it's not a big conspiracy, it's just stupidity, bad leadership, a compliant people, and well, here we are, right? But I want to talk in this video about something else, about how what's going on in Australia is going to happen in every democracy in the West. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Australia is the beta testing of these totalitarian measures that are going to be imposed. Now, you have to understand what kind of totalitarian measures these are, okay? The way I would view it is that it's kind of like a neo-feudalism. The rich people, well, they can do whatever they want. The plebes, you know, the people who are below, who are making less than six figures, say, they're the people who suffer. They're the people that get the boot heel up against their face. Yeah. I mean, the way to look at it is that there is a class of people who are benefiting and a very large mass of people who are being abused and injured by these measures. And, you know, neo-feudalism is as good a way as any to identify what's going on. Because you have to keep in mind that in every totalitarian state, in every single one, see, there is a class of people who implement the abuse, who implement the totalitarian measures and make sure that they stick. And those are the people at the top. In communism, in Soviet communism, it was the Communist Party. The Communist Party was on top, and of course there was the Stalin figure or the Khrushchev and Brezhnev figure. They weren't so totalitarian as Stalin, but there was that figure at the top, and then there was the party. And that figure at the top was the dictator, and the party implemented the totalitarian measures on the populace. That's what happened in the Soviet Union. And you go to every totalitarian regime, and it's always the same. There is a class at the top, be it financial, be it social, be it because they belong to a certain party or whatever. And that party at the top, they implement totalitarianism on everybody below. And everybody below is abused, persecuted if they object, persecuted if they don't comply. I mean, just abused. That's totalitarianism. And that's what's coming to the West now. And I don't think that there's any way to stop it, to tell you the truth. And why do I think that? Well, because of Australia. Australia is the beta testing of these measures. And what has happened in Australia? Not a hell of a lot. On Saturday, this past Saturday, there were all kinds of demonstrations against these measures, the lockdown and whatnot, all these totalitarian measures that you have to stay indoors, you know, 23 hours per day, and you only get 1 hour outside to do some exercise while wearing a mask, you know, and you can't go farther than 5 kilometers from your home, and you have to have the vaccine passport on your phone, right? And of course, the phone is the way that they track you, that they make sure that you're complying to this 5 kilometer radius. It's fucking crazy. It's fucking insane. It's totalitarian, huh? But they're implementing it. And to tell you the truth, the protests and whatnot, nothing happened. I mean, as I'm recording this, the Australian government hasn't fallen. There aren't calls to prosecute, rather, people who have imposed these insane mandates. No. The protest happened, and there was no reaction. Things just trundled along. And in fact, some of the regional governors in Australia are saying that they're going to impose even stricter measures, more totalitarianism. So the nationwide protest didn't mean shit. There is a brief glimmer of hope that apparently the truck drivers in Australia are going to stage a nationwide strike. This is serious, by the way. In other nations where there's been a trucker strike, the government quickly falls because people need truckers, because they need food, because they need the trucks to bring the food to wherever they are, because we live in an urban, suburban environment where the food is produced way out there and we live way over here. We need somebody to bring that stuff, the truckers. Now, the truckers are supposed to go on strike, and we'll see how effective that strike is. Because if it's, like, say, 80% effective, then the nation is crippled. But if it's, 55% effective, then it's not crippled. And if it's not an overwhelming success, then the government will take that as an opportunity to persecute the truck drivers who struck and replace them with, truck drivers who are loyal to the regime. You see? So this is a dicey thing. It could be that this really has a positive impact on the situation in Australia, but it could very well be that it doesn't, and it gives the totalitarians the excuse to dismember the truckers and anybody who opposes their regime. See? So we'll have to see how the trucker thing goes. But that's for later. All right? Right now we have to look at what we have on the table. We got to look at the pieces on the chessboard as they are at this time. And in Australia, well, you got to just call it what it is. It's totalitarianism. And it's medical totalitarianism. And what's happening also is a lot of people are reporting how people who are upscale, people who've got money, are essentially exempt from all of these limitations. They're able to go wherever the fuck they want. And I think that this is grossly unfair, but that's the way things are in Australia. And I think that a lot of governments in Europe, in North America, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, yeah, this seems like a pretty good idea. Silence all these people who are all uppity and trying to, break out of the lockdown. It's for their own good. Don't they trust the science? And of course, these leaders who want this, I don't think that they've thought through the issue of how this is going to affect the economy long term. Or perhaps they don't care. Perhaps they're thinking to themselves that so long as their particular class is materially all right, it doesn't matter what happens to the plebes. And actually, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that that's probably the calculation. That they don't care what happens to the plebes. They just want their own lives to be nice. And look, you have to understand that feudalism, neo-feudalism, where you have economic dependence from the bottom towards the top, and the top controls people by way of this economic dependence. It's very attractive, especially in this plutocracy that we've been living under over the last 30-odd years. A plutocracy is a rule by the rich. And we have seen how the rich can manipulate the government by way of lobbying firms, by way of dangling promises of expensive and high-paying, lucrative positions after a public servant leaves office, and how that has corrupted the democratic system. And we've seen that over the last 30 years. The whole K Street lobbying thing, okay, where corporate lobbyists lobby Congress to get laws that will be beneficial to their companies. And it's just a way of doing business in Washington and in the other democracies of the West, for that matter. Well, that kind of corruption, I think that perhaps this is the end stage of that, where people at the top are thinking to themselves, it doesn't matter what happens to the plebes so long as we're doing all right, so long as things are all right for us. And for them, fuck them. Anyway, in this video, what I want to tell you, okay, is that basically you have to prepare. You have to realize what's coming. And you have to think to yourself, well, do I want to fight this? And what tools do I have at my disposal to fight this? Of course, non-violently. I'm always in favor of non-violence. I'm always opposed to any sort of violence. I certainly am. But you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do with the situation? Are you going to live with it? Do you think that you can live with it? Or do you think that you should move on? Because something else too. See, in Australia, you can't leave Australia if you're an Australian citizen. They're not allowing people to leave. It is literally a prison country, a prison colony. Yes, it is. You can't leave. It's not that you can't get into Australia. You can't exit Australia, just like in the Soviet Union. Now, the rationale is just idiotic. It's, so as to not spread the disease and crap like that. It's just total garbage. But they're playing this card, okay? And this is a card that the other Western democracies are going to play. And that means that if you are in Canada or the United Kingdom or United States or France or Germany or any of the other EU states, you're not going to be allowed to leave. And you're not even going to be allowed to cross borders to another state or another country if you're in the EU. You're going to be stuck wherever you are. And this is going to last at least 2 years, and it could be permanent. I'm not kidding. Wheresoever you are, when this total lockdown is put into place, that's where you're going to stay for a good chunk of time, if not for the rest of your days. And this is going to happen over the next 6 months. Okay? So the smart thing is to figure out where you want to be long term and try to get there as quickly as possible right now. And if you are opposed to getting a vaccine for whatever reason, I'm not here to judge, your body, your choice. If you're against the vaccine, well, you're going to have to figure out a mode of transportation to get to where you want to go. And you got to move there quick. I'm talking like right now, in the next, like I said, the next 6 months. Because if Australia is any guide, Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, they're seeing this, the authorities there, and they're liking what they see. Especially because, after this big nationwide protest, nothing happened. No government fell. The people in power stayed in power. The military did not break with the people in authority and join the people. And so they're going to impose this totalitarianism, this tyrannical totalitarianism. I mean, if you can fly on a private jet, then no problem. Then no problem at all. You're not going to have any problem crossing borders. Just like during the lockdown in 2020, if you wanted to go to Seychelles, for instance, you couldn't, because there were no commercial flights, and even if there were commercial flights, it was just not possible. But if you flew in on a private jet, no problem. Yeah, I'm dead serious, okay? That happened, and it's happening. They're not checking the manifest on private jets. You go on a private jet to wherever you want, no problem. No problem at all. You don't need any passport, vaccine passport, or any kind of PCR test, none of that crap. If you fly on a private jet between countries, no problem. But if you decide that you're going to travel commercial, then there's a problem. Because it means that you're a plebe, see? Because a plebe can't afford a private jet, now can he? Yeah. So anyway, getting back to the point that I was making. Over the next 6 months, these totalitarian measures are going to be implemented in the countries of the Western democracies, just as they're being implemented in Australia now. And because of this, you're going to be stuck wherever it is that you are. Now, it could be that you are where you are because of work, but you actually live someplace else. It could be that you've been thinking that it might be a smart idea to move to a freer country. I myself live in Ukraine, where here it's free. I mean, I can do whatever I want. I can walk around without a mask. Nobody hassles me. Nobody asks me for my papers, please, i.e. my vaccine passport. Here, man, they haven't vaccinated, I think it's less than 8% of the population has been vaccinated here. And here they're stoic Russians. They don't give a shit about any of that shit. Yeah, here I am actually free. Thank God I'm here, okay? But if you're not in a free country and you want to, then you got to pick that country now and figure out how to get there right now, okay? Because later you won't be able to. When they start implementing Australia rules in your country, you will not be able to go anywhere. You will not be able to move. You will be beholden to the place where you are, and you will be stuck there forever. And no amount of complaining, and no amount of talking to the manager, and no amount of letter writing or videos or TikTok or any of that bullshit is going to change the fact you are going to be stuck. So you better figure out where you want to spend the rest of your life right the fuck now and go there now while you still can. Because the rest of the world is going to implement Australia rules, and those rules are unbreakable.